Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 26th of October, and some people are going to get jittery as we approach, your October 29 crash date. It's always been a thing, but particularly when the markets are suffering a little bit of negativity. I mean, well, we're off on the ES here about 10% now from the peak high, but that being said, still extremely well valued relative to what we've been seeing. Broader from earnings and that. But however, we could see this developing as we had the MBI white spike, which called for the move to zero. We had a brief moment where the MBI magenta here was holding things in place for a little bit, but strong DOC spread here with cyan and green reject. It's usually pretty significant strain. And we also knew that the S&P was going to be affected by the NASDAQ. And again, it's pretty obvious because the top 8 companies there really represent a significant percentage of the weighting of the market. And at the end of the day, this was the expectation, a return back to this 14.3. We've had it marked here. We were just waiting for it to take its final place. And lo and behold, actually what was the low, we dipped to 14,257 before rebounding slightly off it. And we knew that there would be a reaction off of the low there. Now that's the current pre-market tape that's taking place. We didn't quite finish that low yesterday. We got to 14.4, which was just shy of it. So it was just a matter of follow through to that. And no surprise to anyone here because we were watching that MBI white lead as well as the orange stuck between cyan and red is continuation, as always. You get some fits back and forth, but at the end of the day, it did exactly as expected. It just took some time. And as I pointed out, time is irrelevant when it comes to some of these algo values. It doesn't really matter. It's just the target is the target, and it will be reached. It's just a question of, how much bounce around until you get to that. A flight back into treasuries, starting with that. No surprise back there. But again, it's interesting because the Treasury yield is ahead of where the Fed is. And that's an indication that the market believes that the Fed will be forced to continue to raise rates to keep things under control. And it also means then that, some of the Fed minor policy moves are now actually behind the curve and not in control of the situation. And that is an interesting one because there could be a lot of different impacts related to that. And of course, oil being the primary one. And again, everyone says to me, what's the reality of, getting things under control and moving the economy? It's very simple. You move oil back down into the 50, 60 range, and all of a sudden, you're going to see a significant amount of, economic activity related to it. And this has always been the case. It's not brain science of any kind. It's just basic numbers. You give people an incentive to where energy costs are lower and productivity and all the other things start to rise. It's always been the case. From a euro standpoint, of course, we knew that this was a fake push-up. And again, the more pressure that we see from global growth and everything else is just going to be hard to justify the euro, particularly as long as oil stays high and tensions haven't really eased enough to make a difference. That's also going to be a proponent for gold. We talked about this endlessly, so no question there. And that's also going to be a boon for crypto. So we can see it from our early buys down to the 27 range here, now up to 30, 35 almost. No surprise. The fact that ETH had been trailing it for the longest time as far as percentage of growth, starting to make up for that difference and just coming back up, not anywhere near previous highs from earlier in the year, but still a market improvement as the realities of economic difficulties, and it's a good safe haven. So you're just mixing the basket. With rates being what they are, it becomes much more attractive than the risk of capital in the market. This 50K kind of shows it. I mean, you look at from our peak, and despite the small little up spurts, we've just been in a solid down negative trend. And no shock with that, because every time we see our little MBI white spikes, we can expect to move back down to that zero. The question we always look for is, well, is the zero going to start rising? And how much will that differential be? In this case, wasn't much, and got a full retrace to the zero. MBI white still led most of the day yesterday, and there was no net buying out of that at all, and that's even continued at this particular point. Seen a little pop off here with the magenta moving back above yellow on the MBI white, but yellow with the magenta. And that's giving us a little bit of support here in the decay, but again, you still have that same crossover, and orange still stuck between them. But the orange heading down here in this particular case on the DOC could create a little P2 pivot, given enough to push back up. You would expect they would want to try and move back up towards that 4205 range, which would hit the 23%. That would be normal from that aspect, but clearly you can see that the effects of algorithm and what it told us would happened. Plain and simple. We can see it from an intraday. The selling started early, continued, brief move back up into the 50% by the time market had its open, and after that, it just continued to cascade lower. And so the algo from our paint bar was spot on with that. And then once the market closed for the day, you can see the selling continued from that move and has progressed significantly. We're getting a little bounce right now, pulling it back up a bit, but still a lot of sell pressure that's available, and that's going to continue to put a drag on things. Next, what we'll do is probably tomorrow I'll go through some of the potential options even further below, but another 10% is not out of the question, particularly if tech begins to suffer more, and or if there's any other continued global escalation. So we'll just keep following it and go with the readings. As always, though, I'll continue to update you on the Skype chat net. Trade well. Have a good one.